Yeah. See, I used to go by the name of the Oxford Outlaw. Got caught up in some shit back in 2017, man. It's some real nasty shit. And I told myself I wasn't gonna live it down. I wasn't gonna let them get away with it. See, they banned me. They outlawed me. I've been living as an outlaw. But what they didn't expect is for that outlaw to start raking the Mississippi muck. The Mississippi mud, baby. And that's where I got the name. The Mississippi Muckraker.
There was a time, no problems getting by. The money came hand over foot, my homies ride or die. I put my money where my mouth was, that was no surprise. 1986 Corvette, that whip was super fly. On track for super size, I was supercharged. I took a stand, I had support until I caught that charge. New age mission impossible, a new age Ethan Hunt. I'm quoting Winston Churchill while I'm chiefing on a blunt. It started off with Timmy, power tripping piece of shit. Arrest me on the 1st of May for my lack of a permit. I didn't have to get one, yeah that's right, they got it wrong. I'd like to tell you about it. It's a Matt Reardon song. Yeah, it's a documentary. Yeah. It's a documentary. You're riding with the outlaw.
Big news here in Mississippi. The jokesters that were elected as our state representatives decided to bypass a vote and went straight for the jugular to remove the state flag of Mississippi. My thing that I've said from the beginning is that if it goes to a vote, and if the overwhelming majority voted in favor of a new flag, you're not going to hear me complain. Because at the end of the day,
Mr. Mayor, I want to speak
my
out on
statement
the
has
state
always
flag,
been
like I
about
said.
our constitutional rights. Okay? The rights that are afforded to us as citizens. It's not about us stars and bars. It's about the will of the people.
Sure, but this is the taxpayers'
Second,
house. They have a right to speak. You
the
have
vote of the
absolutely
people
no
doesn't
right
matter.
to say that they can't speak.
And you have elected officials that are making controversial moves that are ignoring that which the people vote for.
You're a cultural Marxist. Every
Just spelled
single
out
one
an
of you
epic
sitting there are
disaster
cultural Marxists
for society.
if you vote
Because it
to
sets
keep the flag
precedents.
down.
Only bad things can come from it. You want to hear about one of the nastiest public corruption scandals? And what's crazy is I've literally mapped this thing out, called every single phase of what's going on right now in advance, because I knew it happened. And you've got agencies that are obstructing justice, destroying evidence, and turning a blind eye, shoveling proof of innocence,
Jared Bundren.
and shielding criminal activity.
Hey, I'm here to show you how
That's
to conduct
going
a
on in our
proper
very
investigation. You received a call on May 24th, 2017.
Heinous corruption
I would like the details of that call.
to such a level
Why are y'all cowards? Why are y'all cowards?
to help get a female Democrat
I'm
mayor
saying
elected.
I would like to. I'm trying to ask. You said noted.
Kept damning information, which would have had potentially devastating political ramifications from coming down the hopper. Her husband the attorney of my ex for the original child custody matter back in 2016, August of 2016. It was that time that my child was kept from me for approximately 2 months. It's the first extended period of absence that I took away from her. That was, she basically was used as a wedge, a negotiation tool. You got the May 1st, 2017 arrest. In front of that statue right there. Where I was holding the state flag of Mississippi. Standing on public property. Was not bothering a soul. Was not loud. Nothing. Just standing on this very pavement that I'm standing right now. Holding the state flag of Mississippi. But because that didn't fit the agenda of this city, the city being that it took it on itself to remove the state flag from city property while all along taking taxpayer dollars from the state, from Jackson. My view hasn't changed on that. Never will. It's common sense. If you take state-funded tax dollars from your state, well, damn it, I think it should be an obligation that you fly the state flag. I don't think that's some far out there want and demand. May 1st, Deputy Sheriff Timmy Pruitt pulled up. He asked me if I had a permit to be here. I told him that I had the First Amendment. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm a patriot. I'm a 3%er. I took an oath at the end of 2007 to uphold and defend our Constitution from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. My oath had no expiration date. Nowhere in the military oath is there an expiration date that says that this oath is only good until the time of your service ends. And it's like that for a very particular reason. You see, when I took an oath back in 2007 to uphold and defend our Constitution, I swore an oath to our country and ultimately wrote a blank check to our government for an amount up to and including my life. Now, I wasn't deployed. I was never sent to a deployable squadron. In fact, I was in the air wing, and I was part of a non-deployable squadron that actually trained new pilots to fly the AV-8B Harrier and then get assigned to a gun squadron and sent overseas to drop bombs on Iraq. So I personally find my MOS and my job very crucial to the readiness of the Marine Corps and its officers to go and drop bombs on the bad guys. Okay? So I wrote a blank check to the government for an amount up to including my life. It's that reason right there alone that the oath that I took doesn't expire. So I wanted to know, and I still want to know to this day, how a city and a county has the right, feels that they have the right to supersede the Constitution, the law of the land. Because the last I knew, no law made by any city or any county ever had the effect of becoming a law and a lawful order if it directly clashed with that of the Constitution. And the First Amendment right guarantees my right to stand here on public property, whether or not I'm causing friction, whether or not I'm irritating people. It's my right, granted through the First Amendment, to have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. Just like, I'll point the camera over here, if y'all can see. You've got protesters over there holding signs, wanting the statue to come down. And I tell them every single time I talk to them, they have a right to be here. And honestly, they have the right to live, to be here free of harassment. And don't even need to have a permit. Shouldn't even be a requirement to have a permit. But see, that's the liberal hypocrisy, because I'll never hear that said to me. In fact, being that I'm a conservative, just the opposite. Back in May of 2017, false reports were called up there about me causing problems on the square, even though I wasn't saying a thing. I was just holding a state flag, had a gun on my hip.
You know, I am audio and video recording, Mr. Brett.
I don't care. You have a permit to be here.
The First Amendment, actually.
You have a permit to be here.
No.
Alright, you gotta leave.
Why is that?
Because you're going to jail if you don't.
I'm going to jail just for standing out here and
That's
holding
right.
a flag.
You have to leave.
Okay, where does that super...
Well,
let me just...
one more time.
Can I just ask you... Can I ask you a question?
I'm going to ask you one more time to leave. If not, I'm going to get you to jail. Disorderly conduct.
Okay, I'll leave and take this straight to my attorney then. That's you can't threaten me with my First Amendment rights. Hey, I'm gonna tell you right now, Mr.
Count
Pruitt.
3 to leave. 1.
This fucking city is ass fucking backwards. Ass fucking backwards. Y'all see that? Hey, what's your badge number, by the way, Deputy Pruitt? No, I'm not. I'm leaving. I was asking you. I was asking you. I was leaving.
Long story short, Deputy Pruitt said I had to leave. I didn't have a permit or I was going to face arrest. Said I was going to take the video straight to my attorney. I couldn't be threatened with my First Amendment rights. His uniform was a little bare that day. He had forgotten to put his badge back on before coming out. He took about 7 steps off and I turned around to ask him what his badge number was. That infuriated him because it made him look horrible. As if he wasn't already doing a good enough job of that himself. When he came trying to trod on a Marine Corps veteran and a patriot's rights, stand there in solitude by myself, not even as a group, holding the state flag of Mississippi. I was arrested. When I asked him what his badge number was, it infuriated him. He took me to the jail. I maybe was in the jail for about an hour before I posted bond. I grabbed my state flag. My car was parked right here on the square still. And I decided I was going to take a victory lap and walk from the sheriff's department with my state flag back to the square. And I did a victory lap around the square, holding my state flag, proudly holding my state flag. Because I knew what I did was not wrong. And you can try to paint me into a corner and try to demonize me all you want to. Fact is, even by the sheriff's department's own admission, and through multiple agencies, news agencies, I was arrested for holding the state flag on public property. Circuit Court Courthouse in Oxford, Mississippi. It's been an eventful day today. There are a bunch of college-age kids over on the south side, right in front of the Confederate statue, holding signs wanting to take the statue down. But not one of them could give a reason.
Outlaw Matt Reardon returns to Oxford after nearly 3 years to investigate, document, and ultimately vindicate himself. Matt Reardon was unlawfully arrested and illegally confined on May 26, 2017, until July 6, when he was coerced under extreme stress to plea out to a crime he never committed and couldn't possibly have committed in order to see and ultimately get his daughter back into his life. To add insult to injury, in what seemed like an unreal and unimaginable nightmare, a mandatory part of his involuntary plea involved being banished from the city and county for the term of his probation, 5 years, and signing a covenant to not sue the sheriff's department, the city, the county, any officers involved, any city or county elected official, or any city or county employee. They thought they had every angle tied up. One big problem for them. Actually, two. First, Matt got off probation at halftime, just 2.5 years. The second, being the county opening the door, giving him every legitimate reason to legally bypass the covenant to not sue when even more corruption started to surface at some of the highest levels, including the county and sheriff's department, refusing to comply with a Public Records Freedom of Information Act request after the sheriff's department admitted in the last batch of documents requested that Deputy Jared Bundren had received a mystery phone call on May 24, 2017, just 2 days before Reardon was ambushed on the square in Oxford, Mississippi, and arrested by 4 sheriff's investigators, including Bundren. Not long into his discovery phase, he realizes that there is much more involvement in this plot. The FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office refused to get involved and have refused to look at any evidence. Maybe that's because they played a big part in this scandal even happening in the first place. It became increasingly evident when the FBI completely refused to comply with a public records request to produce an investigative report called a 302, which would have been generated from a sit-down meeting Reardon had with 2 agents on May 25, 2017. Reardon took the advisement of an assistant U.S. attorney and sat down with the 2 agents at the local field branch office in Oxford, Mississippi on May 25, 2017. It is during this meeting where Reardon shows proof of a death threat being made on him and further proving Reardon's innocence in the all-out attack on Reardon and his rights the very next day. It is during this meeting also that Reardon discusses how he purchased an AR-15 for self-defense on May 20th, 2017, and he also discussed how his First Amendment rights were brutally attacked due to a cheap shot injunction taken out by the soon-to-be mayor-elect and her husband, essentially barring him from addressing City Hall on the day of the election, June 6, 2017, which he was already listed on the published agenda for. Since that time, the FBI has sat back taking a silent approach, even making reference to the fact that they could not locate the 302 investigative report, which would accurately show everything, along with any surveillance gathered from that meeting. In trying to combat trickle-down corruption, which he names as one of the biggest threats to society, Oxford outlaw Matt Reardon bravely continues to get closer and closer to the fire as he finds more and more government involvement and pushback from the same ones that plotted to frame him, silence him, get rid of him, and ultimately destroy his life back in 2017. It's a race against the clock, and Matt is a man on a mission in an all-out war on corruption to reclaim his rights and his life, which were so brutally destroyed by the careless, selfish, and shockingly corrupt acts of this local government and the ones who assisted in helping to cover everything up.
Matt Reardon, the Oxford Outlaw. I just came across some new records. Some records that I didn't even know about. Come to find out, there was a summons. There was a criminal charge that was actually levied against me back in February of 2020. So I got a couple of sets of paperwork. Had also a nice lengthy call with the guardian ad litem in my case, and I knew that I should have never settled out. And it wasn't even a settling out. It was a signing of a temporary order in order for me to get my child back at visitation. Normal visitation that never should have ever changed. And I think what I've learned throughout all of this, what it's taught me, is that these disgusting animals will go to no length. There's not a stopping point when it comes to trying to hang me, because they realize the extent of the damage that they have directly caused, that they have played a part in, and that they will ultimately be 100% held responsible for. In my hand right here, I've got the original affidavit. Filed May 26, 2017. See, several things happened that ultimately affected the outcome of my case. Several things did not happen that should have happened, which would have affected the outcome of my case. And for anybody else, there would have been a complete dismissal before it even started. Something that I tried to assert before the corrupt puppet judge, Carolyn Bell. So the affidavit says this. Before me, Mary Pettis, a justice court judge or court clerk of said county, Todd Lynch, makes that Matthew Oliver Reardon, on or about the 8th day of May, 2017, in Lafayette County, did unlawfully, willfully, purposefully, and feloniously stalk Todd Lynch by engaging in the following course of conduct directed at Todd Lynch. Did display a deadly weapon with the intent to place Todd Lynch in reasonable fear of death or of great bodily injury at 501 Pine Cliff Cove in Lafayette County, Mississippi. This being in violation of Mississippi Code 97-3-107 as amended, aggravated stalking, against the peace and dignity of the state of Mississippi. And I would assume that that is his signature. Sworn and subscribed to me before me this 26th day of May 2017. That is the first time I actually saw where Todd Lynch resided. Didn't even care. Haven't cared. Certificate of initial appearance. I certify that Matthew Oliver Reardon, 662-832-8395, that was my phone number at the time, whose address is what they should have written is the Lafayette County Detention Center, because that is where I was housed, was granted an initial appearance before me. On the 30th day of May, 2017, the following information was given to the defendant verbally, and a copy of the certificate was also given to the said defendant, to Matthew Oliver Reardon. Charge and penalty. You've been charged with the following felony crimes, and you are ultimately convicted, and if you are ultimately convicted, may be sentenced to the penalty shown after the crime. Crime, aggravated stalking, 97-3107. Penalty, there's nothing there. Copy of the complaint against you is attached to the certificate. If your name and address are shown are incorrect, the error should be pointed out to the court. You have the right to remain silent. You're not required to speak, and any statements you make may be used against you. I tried to speak. I tried to show undoubtable evidence that I could not possibly have committed the crime. And furthermore, that no crime had ever been committed, period. Right to an attorney, right to communication. You have the right to communicate with your attorney, family, or friends by reasonable means. Right to a preliminary hearing. Here's where they fucked up. You have the right to a preliminary hearing before a judicial officer of the charges made against you to determine whether there is probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed and that you committed it. If such probable cause is found not to exist, you will be discharged from custody. At any such preliminary hearing, you have the right to cross-examine any witnesses offered against you, compel the attendance of witnesses on your own behalf by subpoena, and offer any evidence in your behalf. An application for preliminary hearing is attached here too. There is no application for a preliminary hearing. I was never afforded one. And by Mississippi law, you must be afforded a preliminary hearing within 14 days by state law. This never happened. If you're not, you're to be released on your own recognizance immediately upon the 14th day with a scheduled hearing date to show up. Bail. You have the right to bail. Your bail corresponding to the charges set forth in paragraph 1 above is $150,000 with stipulation of no weapons in possession. Not only did Judge Carolyn Bell not say anything about no weapons in possession, Carolyn Bell, she went 3 times outside of allowable guidelines established by the Mississippi Supreme Court. And the fact that she ignored these guidelines in place, the fact that this judge, who's had a history of setting bonds on the lower end of the guideline, and especially if you're African American, especially if you are a Democrat, a liberal, it screams concern. Commitment. You're hereby committed to the custody of the sheriff to await the action of the Lafayette County Grand Jury next convened or further action of the Circuit Court of said county. The 30th day of May, 2017. Signed, Carolyn Bell, Justice Court Judge. There is no copy of anything being offered as a preliminary hearing, which is my right. And right here, there's an affidavit for search warrant that was then executed by Jared Bundard as part of his witch hunt in order to gather anything and everything he could to try to make some real charge stick. Unfortunately for him, there was nothing there. This entire time, I've faced extreme persecution from Lafayette County and through my ex, who has played a significant part in all of it, Liz Crowder, as well as her attorney. Of course, crooked puppet judge Carolyn Bell signed off on the affidavit of a search warrant. The underlying facts and circumstances. All right? I, the affiant, Jared Bundard, have been a sworn law enforcement officer in Lafayette County for approximately 19 years. I have worked all these years as a deputy sheriff for the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department. I was assigned to investigator on September 2nd, 2009.
Affiance training includes graduate from the Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Academy on March 13, 1998, as well as various schools and seminars. I've testified in city, justice, and circuit court. I've presented cases to grand jury and secured indictments. I believe I'm gonna present cases to the grand jury, and I have no doubt in my mind, if that grand jury is not tainted to the fullest, that I will attain secured indictments without having any of that Jared Bundren had. On May 26, 2017, officers with the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department and Oxford Police Department was attempting to locate Matt Reardon in order to serve a felony stalking warrant on Matt. Matt had been making threats on social media and displaying an AR-15 rifle and handgun. Matt was known to drive a 2013 Kia, black in color, Mississippi tag LYR 580. I had received information that Matt was on his way to the square to go to the bar. Units had set up around the square. Matt was spotted pulling into a parking spot where he was arrested without incident. When Matt was taken into custody, he was wearing a flap jacket type bulletproof vest and had a pistol concealed inside of the vest. There was an AR-15 in plain view on the passenger seat, as well as ammunition and extra magazines for the weapons. Also in plain view was a remote control for a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle drone. The Sheriff's Department has had several complaints from Matt's ex-wife, Phyllis Crowder, of a drone flying over her house at night on 22 County Road 422 in Lafayette County. Matt's ex-wife has an active protection order against him. Deputies have been in the area before and seen an object flying at treetop level. Ha! Impossible! Because I never did. And if he did his fucking homework, if he would have actually looked at the drone itself that they had seized from my custody on its bullshit search warrant, they would have known just that. It's funny because I have the same reports. And in these reports, the officers refute a drone. In fact, there's only one, and that is by a sheriff's deputy, Bo Prince, who has been friends with Liz Crowder since middle school. He is the only one, he is the first one to go out on the first call. He is the only one that sees a drone or sees anything remotely that could have been a drone. I never had any reason to ever fly a drone over her property. Other than I would have loved to have seen my daughter that she had unlawfully ripped away. After Matt was taken into custody, he was in possession of 3 cell phones: the Samsung Galaxy Core Prime, Samsung Galaxy Note 5, Apple White iPhone 7. Matt posted videos and was on Facebook Live making threats and posting pictures of himself with guns while making the videos. The remote control for the UAV drone can also be used with a cell phone to take videos, pictures, and use to keep flight patterns. Well, being that they had seized that information, or they had gotten it by search warrant, where? Surely y'all did your job to download the flight path. So why was nothing ever further said about the drone? Why have I not been not only not afforded the equal protections of the law, but refused the equal protections of the law, and furthermore, subject to the most ridiculous of witch hunts ever imaginable that continue on to this day? I'm hereby saying that Jared Bundren hereby needs to be stripped of his badge and investigative duties permanently. There's so much fraud and corruption that exists and continues to go on at the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department, in the courts, and with various members of this community. And that's why I'm back. That's why Riding with the Outlaw exists, is to point out, to show evidence of the true criminals, and to bring them to justice.